So, Ray, you've been in this work for a long time. You've been in advocacy work for a very long time. And, as I watch you work, I can see the strength and capacity you have. You just push and push and push. That can't be easy to be standing in the gap. You're standing in the gap for other people. And one of the things that I know you and I have spoken about is that in addition to standing in the gap for other people, we have to support people to learn how to advocate for themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that is something that even at Wholeness and Justice, we've made that, a critical goal to support people in self-advocacy. It sounds nice, but it could be tough,
It can be.
What I've realized is that quite a number of people are not exactly sure about what self-advocacy means. Yeah, so just from your experience, being out there and even coaching and supporting people, how would you define self-advocacy?
Well, the simplest way to define self-advocacy is any situation or any act where you speak up for yourself and you represent your own needs and interests or defend your own rights. Acts of self-advocacy doesn't really have to be huge or grand. It could be very simple things, like if you were looking for clinical care in the public healthcare service and you were a gender or sexual diversity, you could ask for just that, a clinician who understands gender and could meet you on that level. One of the important things about self-advocacy is that it really gives you a sense of empowerment. You're not just this passive person in society where things are happening to you. You could actually be participating and making a change in decision making that actually affects you, So it is difficult.
Yes.
It is difficult just to have that courage to go out there and speak for yourself when you figure the whole world is against you. But at the same time, rather than feeling passive and feeling that you have no power and things are acting against you, if you take little instances to stand up for yourself, you feel more like you're part of society, that you can bring about a change and create the environment that you want. Self-advocacy is very important, perhaps more so than the bigger other forms of advocacy, because it starts with a little building block of the self.
Of the self, yeah. It's so interesting you said of the self, because in Wholeness and Justice, when we talk about advocacy and self-advocacy, we often talk about that particular acronym that we created.
I didn't realize that.
S.E.L.F, self.
Yeah.
And for us, I want us to kind of talk about that acronym and how it could be applied to persons wanting to practice self-advocacy. So, self, what's the S stand for?
The S stands for speaking up for yourself.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example. I was at this HIV/AIDS conference workshop, and we were talking about increasing uptake with the key populations. And when I speak about key populations, I'm speaking about MSM, trans men or women, sex workers. And one of the ladies there, who was a facilitator, she said, in particular for trans persons, a person of trans experience, she said, well, just dress as your assigned sex at birth and go to the place and take your test. And instead of having to have all these issues about if I'm dressing right, and there's a trans woman inside of that, in that meeting there, and immediately she stood up and she was like, no, no, no. In that moment, she is realizing that this person is taking away her power to make decisions about how she presents herself and to demand healthcare, regardless of how she appears or how she expresses herself. She has a right as a citizen to get healthcare, and she's not going to go and pretend to dress in any other way or pretend to be somebody else. That that to me in that moment was really, really exceptionally brave of her. Very brave, fierce. And that's what self-advocacy is. That's the essence of speaking up for yourself in the situations where other persons might want to silence you or invisibilize you.
I'm hearing the courage in that. The interesting thing is, though you may have courage, you still have to be safe.
Absolutely.
So the E stands for ensuring personal safety. The reality is that sometimes when you try to be an advocate, we know, that people may want to harm you in various ways. And you have to think about, how do I organize my work in such a way that I always keep myself physically safe? And it also becomes important to think about, how do I transmit my message in a way that it remains authentic, but at the same time I'm able to keep myself safe. You know, the E of it, ensuring personal safety. And I think, you know, as I heard you speak about empowerment, I think E needs to be for empowerment too.
Well,
You gotta add a little something. It needs to be empowerment and ensuring personal safety.
And as you spoke about the E being creating that environment of safety for yourself, it takes me into the L, because L is learning about your rights and and just how to navigate social systems on the whole. And I go back again to that same example with that I'll call it by her name, where Brandy was speaking up for herself in that in that meeting. She knew, she said to me, I never forget this, Brandy said the day she realized it was her human right to be who she is and to live freely and safely as the person that she is, she never looked back. And that in itself, learning your rights, gives you, when you feel that the world's against you, that you're powerless, knowing that you have certain rights, that you have certain protections under the law, that you could access certain services through the law, it gives you the power to stand up and be empowered and courageous and safe at the same time when you are advocating for yourself. As gender and sexual diversity, it is very important for us to know these rights, the ins and outs of bureaucracies, because you know in Trinidad, there's go to the first floor, and then they tell you, go up to the third floor, or maybe go up to the third floor, then you go back down to the second floor, and it could be very frustrating. Let us say you are a trans man or a trans woman, and you feel it very self-conscious, just moving up and down this floor to this one building. If you know to go to point A, B, C, and D, then you can go there and execute that. And to that end, CAISO has created a social services navigating brochure. It's up on your webpage, I believe. Knowing these things, as a person of gender and sexual diversity, you need to know how to file a complaint, how to request accommodations, how to access healthcare, and how to be, and your rights in terms of employment, housing, education. If you don't know these things, then you are at risk. Well, you lose your power to begin with to advocate for yourself, right? Because you don't know. But when you know your rights and you know the systems, you know how the bureaucracy works, you are empowered to go out there and stand up for yourself.
So let's recap. So far, we've had S is for
speaking up for yourself.
Speaking up for yourself. E is for ensuring personal safety.
And empowerment.
And empowerment. We just added that.
Yes.
And empowerment. L is for
learning rights and systems.
Learning rights and systems. And as you know, you mentioned Brandy. One of the things I liked about Brandy is that when she needs to find support for herself or for people, she would. So F is for finding support. And in this case, we're talking about emotional support. One of the things that she knew and understood was the importance of mental health and mental well-being, which for us at Wholeness and Justice is critical. So F is for thinking about who are the emotionally supportive persons or emotional support persons that I can engage, or even agencies and spaces I can engage, because advocacy is hard. Advocacy is mentally taxing. And you need to have the right support systems.
You know, as you said that advocacy is hard and taxing, I also remind of Colin. Colin said to me one time, if you want to do this work of activism and advocacy work, you have to be an optimist. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of the times you push and push and push and you don't get the rewards you want. But we have to hold on to optimism, and a lot of times we need to replenish. So being able to have someone they could talk to soothe you in that moment, to give you encouragement to go on. Even here talking to you, Akilah, sometimes when the work is hard, I could call up and talk to you. Oh my God. It's finding support. It's finding support. So you can come to us if you need support. You know, if on those rough days, when the stresses are too much, or when you got too many no's in one go, or you just feel sometimes like it's just too much to bear, Wholeness and Justice is here. You can give us a call. Akilah is here to serve you.
And to remind you that S is for speaking up, E is for ensuring personal safety, L, remind me of the L?
Learning rights and systems.
Learning rights and systems, and F is for finding support. And if you'd like to have this support, we are here to support you.